Mhm.
Robin,
Hi, Fernando.
how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Hey, Robin, how are you?
Hi, Russ. I'm fine.
Sorry. Get rid of that picture. One of the advantages of having gray hair is you never look any older. I looked old since I was 40. So, actually, now that I have you before other people join on, Robin,
Uh-huh.
are you the right person to ask if we get an estimate of how much more morbidity and mortality if the temperature goes up by 5 degrees? Can you change that into dollars, or is that somebody else?
That would probably be um, somebody
Steve Better or somebody like that?
that would be somebody who knows economics, I think. I will, that's not me.
Oh, okay. I thought it might be what, um, you know, might be in your wheelhouse because you're the health person. But
Yes,
okay,
but I don't know how to do the conversion
Like the
to,
health economics, yeah.
yeah, health
wait,
economics. That's what I was looking
okay,
for.
okay.
Yeah.
Can you convert from micrograms per cubic meter of organic aerosol to death? Also,
No,
not you. All right, I can pull that out. I'll do it in the literature.
that's way too above my pay grade. Do I know what breathing bad air causes asthma? Yes. And I can advocate in Annapolis.
Yeah, yeah. Well, far and away that it's changed. Well, I'll wait till the meeting starts. There's some pretty interesting stuff that adds urgency to
Yeah.
this report.
And that's why we need you to tell us what the urgency is.
Yeah, but we need you too, because I don't know squat about human health.
Hello, hello. People are starting to join, so let's give it probably a minute or so.
So perhaps somebody can clear something up for me. I'm confused as to what the comprehensive assessment report of climate change impacts in Maryland, how that's different from the other project that we had going with Cliff Mitchell and Amir Sakota and Dave, like the update of the health and uh, what's it called, Amir?
Climate and Health Report.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't understand what the difference is. So,
Well, that might be part of the conversation today. The thing I'll say just to start is that um, these are two distinct items that were recommended separately in our 2025 recommendations.
mm,
So there is at least there is a separate interpretation of what these two are, but I think that's part of the conversation that we can have today.
I mean, I know one predates the other, but aren't they sort of similar? And so why is it?
Robin, just keep in mind that this is beyond health. It's
Okay, yeah,
broader than
sure.
health. So
I'm
that's
seeing
the
it
key thing.
as the one that we're working on, just updating the climate and health is a part of the bigger one. And so,
Right.
Yeah,
Got
so that's the purpose of today. That's our main course.
I would also like to hear a little bit more about, the process itself, who's doing what, how this has been decided, and of course, where the resources are coming, and so forth, right? So I felt as though this has been a little bit opaque, and so I think I certainly echo Robin's
Right.
assessment in terms of a little bit more clarity on this.
Yeah, and um, I'll push back a little bit on the word opaque because I don't think it's been opaque. I think that's actually the purpose of discussion today. The transparency has come very clearly through our deliberations in 2025 that led to the recommendations of doing this. And the question of process and who does what, nothing of that has been discussed yet. And that's the purpose of having this conversation today.
My recollection, if I remember it correctly, back in 2025, there were like a different ideas that were proposed, and one was, I mean, are we doing like these things separately? And the other thing that was suggested was, like combining everything together and all of that. But I don't recall the decision as to when this specific document was made. That was my question, Fernando.
Sure, sure. And that is the purpose of today's conversation. That is correct. hmm So why don't we get started officially? And I'm going to drop, I'm sure you have seen it, but I'll drop the agenda on the chat. And it looks like we have a cozy group today. And I'm wondering if we just quickly do a quick round of I'm here. We start with Russ and then Robin.
Uh, sure. Russ Dickerson, University of Maryland, College Park. I'm an atmospheric chemist.
Robin Gilden, University of Maryland School of Nursing.
Rahat and then Dawn.
Rahat Sharif, State Science Policy Fellow.
Don Bosch, retired.
Amir,
really.
Amir and then Jonah.
Amir Sapkota, School of Public Health.
Jonah Rollbacher, Whiting School of Engineering at Johns Hopkins University.
All right. Paulinus and then Suzanne.
Paulinus Chibu, University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
And Suzanne, well, maybe, let me keep going. Kim and then Jared.
Hi, Kim Pezza, Climate Resilience for the Office of the Comptroller.
Hi there, Jared Williams, MCCC support with MDE.
All right. Katie, and then Dave.
Good morning, or I guess afternoon now. Katie Hauk with the Maryland Public Service Commission.
Wonderful.
Dave Namazi, UMCs and driving.
Okay, Belay, and then back to Suzanne.
Belay Demaz, Atmospheric Physics, UMBC.
Okay, and Suzanne will come out when she's ready. I dropped the agenda quickly. I'll give a space to Jared if you want to give us any updates on the MCCC activities.
Sure, yeah, there's not a significant amount of update right now. The steering committee still hasn't confirmed the exact process for this coming year's recommendations, although I think it's very safe to assume that it's going to be very similar to last year's. The next commission meeting is on May 6th from 1 to 3, same location as always at the Montgomery Park building. And then that's really all for right now.
Okay, good. So then we can then move into essentially the main activity here. And I appreciate everybody everybody's looking at the document and the essentially I wanted to use this meeting to sort of get the ball rolling on how we go about doing this report, which this updated to the 2008 report, which, like I mentioned earlier, was part of our recommendations for 2025. And the whole point of putting a draft in front of you was to start a discussion. This has not been deliberated or discussed at any point in length. It's just meant to be like a zero starting point. But before we start, I wanted to ask the original instigator of this recommendation, my dear colleague Don Bosch, to perhaps provide some opening background and what we can start discussing that we could achieve through doing this update.
Great. Fernando, could I share a slide? Could you share?
I think you should be able to share, but certainly if not, I can do it. Okay.
Okay, can you see it?
We can see something, yes.
Okay. Okay. Fernando sent out in advance this outline. This isn't a collapsed version of it, but it goes in Robin and it kind of tells you what the scope of what this could be. And this is what Fernando says we have to kind of decide, or at least make the first step towards getting there this time. What he developed in this outline is fairly broad. I mean, it includes not only things like, as you said, the health effects, human health effects, part 5, which would, but also many other things. For example, water resources, the bay, forest, agriculture, and so on. So, and then it goes beyond that, beyond impacts. And Fernando's first proposal, just for discussion, to basically say, okay, it could also go into solutions, mitigation solutions, adaptation efforts, and so on. Now, when Fernando first sent me this, when he was working on it, I said, well, first order question is, we have to decide whether this goes beyond impacts to deal with mitigation and adaptation. And if you're familiar with the IPCC structure, Working Group 1 deals with the changes in climates and how the climate's changing. Working Group 2 talks about impacts, but also mainly about solutions, adaptation solutions. And Working Group 3 talks about mitigation. So do we make it very expansive, or do we focus just on these impacts, including the kinds of changes we anticipate? Now, having said that, one of the things we have an opportunity for, the advantage of, but it also means that we have to pay close attention to it, is that there's no reason to reinvent wheels. If we have a more in-depth health assessment that's going on and it contribute to it, we don't need, we need to make sure that we use that, but also not run afoul of it. We want to make it coherent, with that's going on. Similarly, if we have things like that we've done sea level rise, we under the statute and under this working group, we do regularly sea level rise updates. We have that done in 2023. No reason to do a new one. We have to make it sort of consistent with what we've done. So keep that in mind, that this is broad. How broad it is, we have to kind of decide, but that the idea is that there are lots of other parts that would fit into this, of things that we're doing. So hopefully that will help you do that. Now is background, and here's the slide I showed last November. This was the original assessment that we want to, in some way, some scope, update. And it was done when the Climate Change Commission was first formed in 2007. And we had very specific charge from the governor at the time. And so the contents of that first report Well, fairly simple. It includes many of the things in Fernando's proposed outline, but it's maybe more limited in terms of its scope. And so we concluded that with talking about the implications for mitigation and adaptation, but we didn't go into great depth on either of those, mitigation or adaptation. Can you see that, or should I go to full screen? Share. I guess you can see it. No one's saying
Okay.
it.
It's not.
Now we have other models and things that we can draw from. First of all, the nation has done now 5 national climate assessments that cover the same scope, more or less, in terms of impacts for the nation. The last one was done in 2023, and the efforts that were underway to do the 6th assessment have been terminated under the Trump administration. So there won't be another one for a while. But as you can see, this is a massive report, some 1,800 pages, and it goes into great depths about things like health, for example, or coastal issues. And the numbers after these topics are the number of pages devoted. Now, I don't think we have the energy or the need, quite frankly, to do something that massive. And obviously we're just focused on Maryland, but note on this national assessment, they did regional assessments, and Maryland falls into the Northeast region, but the southernmost part of it. So we're kind of straddling these two regions, but we could draw from this national assessment for input to the work that we do. The other thing that's happened in recent years is several other states have done these kinds of climate impact assessments. New York State in 2024, Pennsylvania, and then Virginia. And here again, I'm just showing you the general outlines. And all 3 of these did what was like similar to what we did back in 2008. That is, talked about how the climate's changed, how the changes are likely to play out over the century, and what are the consequences, what are the impacts of those. Here, the most recent one is from Virginia, and that was initiated actually when I think Fernando was down at George Mason. It was done by George Mason University. So now there's some other important questions, considerations. We obviously aren't going to write this report or even the outline of the report in this meeting, but we need some direction. And one of the things that Fernando and I discussed is that we need a steering committee. Rather than the full STWG, we need the people who are going to actually execute the report and some key partners that are essential. And for example, if we want to make this part of the broader MCC effort, we need to have coordination with the adaptation working group, which is the group that's overseeing your health impact study, because we want this information about impacts to be useful for adaptation strategies. In addition, as I'll get in just a minute, is it turns out the state on a legislative mandate, an act passed last year, and is undertaking a climate change adaptation, a study of the total assessed cost of greenhouse gas emissions, which obviously is going to be discussing impacts on Maryland to try to quantify those and assess the cost of those. That study has now been launched, and it's being undertaken by the Comptroller's office. So we have Kim Pezza here, who is kind of in the lead of that study to discuss how we do that. This is important because I don't know how you can assess the full cost without understanding the impacts. And yet we're probably not going to get into cost counting. So how do we make sure that we can, if we're going to do this, contribute to that study so that it's providing information, scientific information that can be used to develop effective cost estimates. Furthermore, it's going to be important because we don't want these 2 reports to say vastly different things, right? We need to make sure that we're working together to make sure there's some coherence in these efforts. So one of the things we have to discuss is whether this assessment, the STWG-led assessment, can do some things, can provide some information which is useful in that cost of climate change, the Comptroller's Office-led study, which we need to discuss. They've already begun. They've engaged the Maryland Clean Energy Center and an organization called the Center for Climate Strategy that was actually involved way back when in our first action plan here in Maryland. Neither of those two organizations are necessarily have particular strengths with respect to impacts assessment, climate models, projections, those sorts of things. So how do we contribute and work with them? Can we do it at a time frame that's going to be needed for them, because they're on a fast march? They've got a legislative mandate to do this. We need to align this with MCC mitigation and adaptation strategy. So Robin, the very study you mentioned, and what's being done by Adaptation and Response Working Group, we need to make sure we're aligned with that. And if there are things that are taking place or like in a mitigation space as well. For example, we have a Maryland Climate Action Plan, and we have targets and already a plan in place. So it would be foolish for us to try to sit back with a blank slate and develop a plan. We need to make this effort coherent with that. And the other thing which has come up in the discussions in previous meetings is that can we get better at doing this and building capacity, for analyzing data on an ongoing basis to help us understand Maryland's changing climate and how to use that projections and so on into the future. So can we find a way to bring in those groups that are actually working on that so that they can contribute to us, but also build experience, build capacity? And then just how long was it? About 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a retreat at launching the Chesapeake Global Collaboratory down in Solomons, in which we discussed this issue and the update. And there was a lot of interest, a lot of volunteers ready to help and so on. This group involves state agencies as well as university folks. So there are a number of things I think we need to consider as we kind of decide both the outline and the scope of the report, but also the production schedule. So the other thing that Fernando distributed was a production schedule. Depending on what one's view is, when the first draft, I said, it took too long. It should be focused, and because if we want to write short and make this useful for a broad audience rather than a long, detailed document, a scientific report. On the other hand, there are others who would say, well, it's so Fernando kind of compressed the schedule a little bit, and there are others who say, no, that's too fast, because if we're going to do a lot of analysis of data, it's going to take time and so on. So that's another thing we need to keep in mind. What is the sweet spot in terms of a production schedule that is doable in a time frame that we can do a quality effort and yet be useful and public friendly going forward. So Fernando, with those points in mind, I return. This is a slide again of your outline. If you want to leave it up, we can do that, or we can put one of the other slides up as you would like.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Don, for that background. I think let's leave it on. I think the way you framed the conversation certainly I think it's appropriate for the conversation I wanted to have, and the general idea of today, it's brainstorming, it's providing guidance along the lines of what Don said. In addition to that, we need to start getting ourselves together and configure ourselves to produce something like this, which means, for instance, the possibility of establishing a steering committee. Again, we don't have to decide those things now, but I do want to open the document, the production timeline, the scope, how we structure ourselves, all of those items for a brainstorming session, and brainstorming and questions, right, and comments. So,
yeah, just a note, Fernando, the sections in blue are the ones you highlighted in yellow. in there about decisions about whether it's in or out. This is
Right, right. And listen, folks, this is what we will produce, right? Or I mean, and when I say we, it's not just this group, is what this group will convene, right? So it can have as much as we think it should, or less. It could be more focused, less focused. So that's the brainstorming that I'd like to have. So let's open it up and for any reactions or comments, questions.
Well, I'll jump in. I think it's a great opportunity to show how much more we've learned about the urgency of dealing with climate change in Maryland. The first report, for example, talked about in a hotter environment, we're going to have more ozone episodes. Since then, we've learned there are any number of health effects there. In our changing climate, there are going to be more forest fires. Secondary organic aerosol is probably the single most important threat to human health of any environmental problem. And that goes up exponentially with temperature. So this needs to be updated. I know Amir and Robin are very good at explaining what happens if you have more pollen and so on. And thanks Don for reminding me of those other reports. They cover a lot of this material, not all of it. So I think we want to avoid reinventing the wheel. We could just refer to what's in the national report. And I think between New York and Virginia, they ought to cover our particular climate. So, I mean, I would be happy to put human health and air quality in one category. And if Amir and Robin are interested, we could take the lead on that, not write it yet, but generate an outline for you. And what's left is then impacts on water quality. That's not in here. I don't know much about that.
Yeah, it's here it is, water resources and hydrology, as well as Chesapeake Bay and so on.
Okay.
Under climate, natural systems. It's broken out by natural systems and society, social.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
It's got
coastal ecosystem.
agriculture, the whole, all that.
Oh, that would be water quality would fall on part 4.
Yes, and again, the wording, the structure we can tweak it. This is like a version 0 so that we can start discussing. I see Robin's head up, not head, your hand up. I see your head up too, but and I thought I saw Belay with his hand up, but I don't see him anymore.
Yeah, I'm here. I can raise my hand.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do Belay and then Robin, because I think you were first, Belay.
Okay, thanks. No, this is great. This sounds great, and I'm very supportive of it. But just to minimize the work and also get it distributed through, there may be some folks at UMBC and other places that are doing this. So a small call where we could distribute through our offices would make the work, truly joint,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can collect that input also.
Yeah, like a call for contributions or a call for, there you
Exactly.
go. Okay.
Exactly.
Excellent. It's a great idea. Robin?
The issue with human health is it's kind of an overarching issue because there's water quality, there's air quality, there's severe weather, there's food issues that all impact health, and you have it all chunked up in different chapters, and there's going to be health impacts in each of these chapters, but then you have it pulled out into part 12, just human health. And I understand why it needs to be that way, but you're going to be talking about human health in water resources. You're going to be talking about, I don't see anything related to food, but sea level rise. There's going to be health impacts peppered throughout the whole document. And so I don't know, I mean, yes, air quality, heat. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, I think this follows the progression. So you talk about those impacts, and then in the human health section, you can draw on them. And much as you could say the same thing about infrastructure in the built environment. They're all dependent on these other things too. The other thing I would point out is that this gives the opportunity here. In fact, the requirement here is that we're all working with the same set of assumptions. We're going to set the stage in this out in Fernando's outline with actually documenting the observed changes in temperature and rainfall and sea level rise and so on. These are the actual observations. And then we're going to use then we're going to have common set of projections. So we're all talking about the same changes over this century or whatever period we're talking about. And they will be drawn from scientifically valid sources like the IPCC's assessments. So we're all working from the same set of assumptions about how the climate has changed and then how it will change over the centuries. And then we can discuss, the impacts from that same set of assumptions. That's I think that's an important part of this.
Yeah, but definitely, I mean, I going back to the thought that Belay mentioned, I think that's a wonderful idea because it will help us identify pieces that may fit into the bigger puzzle, right? That this report will contribute to, but not be the whole thing, right? And also, it will help us also tailor and customize the report so that we get the most bang for the buck.
Right. And Fernando, the way we approached this earlier, and obviously we had maybe a smaller community of interest back, 20 years ago, 18 years ago, but we found people who either approached us that they wanted to contribute, or we recruited them, and so we had maybe 2 or 3 people working on, say, agriculture. Or whatever the topic. And so from the start we said, don't write us your separate pieces. We're gonna work together on this. So we had kind of a common assumption about how we'd approach it, and then we got people to work together and then edited that, brought that together more coherently rather than like a lot of individually separately written chapters, to make it more consistent and more readable. But I mean, we want to have recruit a lot of people to volunteer their efforts to do this. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of work going on, right? So I think that the work that was done 20 years ago, I think there were like very few people back then, but I think it has certainly expanded a lot.
Right.
And we certainly are having much better understanding of its impact, right? Some of them are very obvious. The ones that are obvious gets often mentioned the most, but there are other many salient features of climate change that are impacting human health right now. Like less discussed, or mental health aspect of it, right? Less discussed are changes in monsoon anomaly and its impact, and changes in the timing of spring onset, and how that we are suffering from that. Just going back a few years ago, when we had the huge Canadian wildfire smoke plume, blanket Eastern Shore, we observed almost 40% increases in mortality among dialysis patients across East Coast. What are the economic implications of those? Right. I mean, there's a huge, societal impact of that. And certainly, as Ross alluded to it earlier, I think it'll be really, I think it'll be good to work together on this. But the one thing that I do want to point out is understanding it itself. It is happening. It's not enough. Right. We have to come up with some what are we going to do about it, right? I mean, how do we increase community resilience to these threats, right? I mean, people are dying from it, people are getting sick from it now. How do we help those communities at present? Right? So I don't want to just sort of like minimize the importance of these issues, but the communities are looking towards us for the answer, and we owe it, right? So I personally am concerned about the outline that is, particularly the time that is, Don, you had it in there. I don't think this sort of thing can be completed within that, 2-3 month, the timeline that I was seeing there. So I think it'll be good to have a little bit more in-depth discussion on it, and maybe even assign smaller subgroups and so forth. So just leave it at that.
Okay. That's
About
great
Amir's
input.
point, what he's talking about then, Fernando, is it's not just good to talk about human health. You need to talk about, the climate adaptation strategies, community resilience, and so on. So the question, though, is in the ecosystem of the MCCC, where does this fit in? And we have the adaptation and response working group that are working on adaptation strategies, including for human health. Do we leave that to them and make sure that we're providing, scientifically sound information that they can use? Or do we get into that? The same sort of thing for mitigation. We have a lot of work, through the mitigation working group, through MDE's policies, the action plan, the plan to do it. We already have a climate policy. It's set by the Climate Solutions Now Act, and it's got goals, and it's got targets by each sector, and it's being tracked and so on. Do we undertake that in this study, or do we say we want to make sure they have the information from impacts that they need, and that's their responsibility? Because the risk is not only duplicating effort, but basically being inconsistent. That we're stepping on each other's toes, if you will. Same sort of thing with the economic cost of climate. The Comptroller's Office study. We want to avoid, giving inconsistent messages, and yet, as you pointed out, Amir, we want to try to use this sort of volunteer effort where we bring scientists together and give them the rich understanding that our scientists in Maryland have that can inform these economic cost studies that are being done. I mean, it's a tricky, challenging thing, but it is the opportunity we have now.
Yeah, no, that's a great reflection, Don and Amir. Thanks for the input. Probably, the MCCC, the commission itself, and through the commission, the working groups should also be consulted, or this should be shared with them so they can tell us what pieces they're already doing, how this will be most useful to their activities, so that we help us find that balance, because I think
and they can be on the steering committee, that help us to guide this effort.
Correct. I see Robin and then Dave Demasi.
Yeah, I thought this was supposed to be an inner work group project, because I know that we had recommended we were going to do a joint effort with the ANR for the climate and health report. So I thought this was also going to be a joint working group product for the MCCC, not just a steering or science and technology work group product. Did I misunderstand?
No, I don't think you misunderstood, or if you had said the complete opposite, I also would have said you didn't misunderstand, because I don't think we've discussed that specific issue. What the factual part of it is that it was a recommendation that we made as a group, but we never said this. Only us are going to do it, right? So it was never said there was going to be multi-group either. So I think all these questions are on the table to be answered.
Yeah, and that's basically, I think if the May 5th MCCC meeting isn't too late. I mean, I think we should directly solicit a few members that serve on the ARWG and on the MCCC. I'm sorry, on the mitigation work group directly to serve on the steering committee, as Don said. I think that makes a lot of sense. And of course, should any other members of the MCCC want to be on the steering committee, again, I think it just helps with the overall, what do you do with the report at the end of the day? So, and making sure there's good acceptance and understanding of it.
Yeah, Dave, I would add to that simply because of the importance of it, in the near-term importance of it is the cost of climate change study that's going on as well. That's mandated by the General Assembly.
Yep.
And Kim is on the call. Last I saw it. So
Yeah, I'm here. That project is completely separate from the commission, right? But
right.
I definitely want to, that's why I'm kind of here at this meeting. I want to keep us connected on all of this as needed. So there's not duplication and so forth. And hopefully we can help each other, but they're very separate, you know.
Correct.
And I would add, I mean, the legislators are not done yet, but there's also another legislatively mandated report that's going to come out of this likely to come out of this session related to things like housing hazards, insurance rates, etc. That would be done over the course of a 12-month period. That would also be going on. That will also include the USM involvement in that. So, that's another one of those reports that we should be looking out for. But yeah, I mean, I think having a working steering committee is important, but I also think you need to have it broad enough so you get groups, these other representative groups in the room at the same time to help shape the report and also to make sure it's communicated.
Don't confuse advice with steering, Dave. I mean, you can cast a broad net, but steering committee needs to be small and it's responsible for getting it done.
Right.
So
different
let's
function.
not try to pack, and make such too large a committee to make this unwieldy.
Yeah, however you think it's organized, but there needs to be
their input is needed for sure. Right.
Yeah. Russ, I see your hand up.
Oh, lower my hand. Okay. I just, somebody said, I think helped focus a little bit. What's our goal? Our goal is not to put together another 1,800-page scientific technical treatise on climate change, but on getting some action. Provide more evidence, more urgency for renewables, getting off of fossil fuel, and increasing tree cover. Those are things that are positive things that we can do that will mitigate the impacts of climate. Maryland by itself can't change the global climate, but we can change our own environment.
Yeah, but it's also adapting to the changes that we're facing and see coming as well.
Those two.
Well, I think no, this conversation is very, very useful. An earlier comment or question was resources available for this, and so the answer to that is easy: 0 to not much, and so. I don't think that there will be funds to cover things like salaries or time of people. That I don't think there's resources available for that. I think it is feasible to obtain resources to convene meetings and facilitate interactions. And of course, definitely for production of the actual report when it's done, et cetera. But I wanted to put that also on the table because we don't, there are no financial resources assigned to this at large.
So just for the sake of transparency, I want to let everyone know that Robin and I are involved in organizing this meeting here on College Park on May 20th. I think that's the tentative date, right, Robin? Along with Maryland Department of Health, and we are trying to invite stakeholders from across the state, including state agencies and the community groups, to assess, get their input on this climate and health report we are planning to do. So certainly we welcome participation from anyone on this, but just to, let everyone know what is happening. And Ross, I think, it'll be really great to, have you be part of that too. So that, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like we were talking about May 20th or
Yes, it's
something like that.
that's the leading date.
Yeah.
The tentative date.
Great. No, and do please bombard us with information agenda. Use the STWG as a channel to disseminate, because it sounds like an important meeting.
But Dave and Amir, I know there's somebody from DNR, but I don't know if there's anybody from the adaptation and resilient or
Yeah, Rylan is from DNR, and she's like the key staff person for the adaptation and resilience group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's one and the same. Yep.
Okay.
Is there a link for this meeting?
Not yet.
Not
No,
yet.
no, because they're still finalizing the date and the location.
Yeah.
I think, Fernando, if as the STWG members get their minds around this, it'd be helpful if you haven't already to go see the 2008 report that we wrote, and you can see the level at which, I mean, it's only an 85-page report. It's
Right.
not like it's a catalog of everything we know about climate change or everything to know about health. I'm not saying we need to follow that model. In fact, I think we have a lot more detail to bring to it now. But I mean, it never was intended that this be a thick tome treatise on environmental and climate change in Maryland, but something that helps inform our society, our decision makers, and so on about the changes that are going on and are likely to happen localized here in Maryland that they can take action on. And so, I think that would help everyone kind of get the idea about what level of high level of abstraction and generality that we may be thinking about here, and how we can provide more detail. As Russ said initially, there's been a lot more information, a lot more understanding that's been developed. How can we bring that in a concise way that helps people understand the urgency of things before us, and why we need to take steps to mitigate as well as to adapt, and what kinds of adaptations generally that we need to make as we see our future here in the state. And in these other reports online as well, the other state reports, they're also fairly brief and it's similar in kind of general scope. It'd be good to, if you have some time, just to spend a few minutes online looking at those reports. And I think the slides I prepared have links. They're linked to sites for those reports. And I said that, Rahat, you have the slide deck you can share with the folks.
Thank you.
So, so let's talk a little bit about kind of logistically next steps. So certainly, getting, your input on the version of the draft that we distributed. Feel free to destroy it, redline it, because that was only meant to stir up the conversation, not as anything that had been agreed on, right? So it'll be useful to, and I think what I'm hearing, and I think we're agreeing, and as to perhaps a reduced or focused, I don't want to call it reduced, but focused scope report that updates the 2008 version and is directed towards facilitating policymaker action, right? And without stepping over toes of things that are being done in parallel and are complementary, right? So within that flavor of an outline, maybe we can pare that down and adjust the time frame of production accordingly, right? And I would welcome very much also your comments on the production schedule because I think that's important. And I think once we have like a version 0.1 of this, it would be useful to elicit input from other members of other working groups and certainly the commission at large, and for their input so we can even pare it down and make it even more useful. Does that sound like a sensible next step or two?
Sounds good. And if I may add just, Fernando, one quick thing is
Sure.
I think the great place to start is the last NCA, and particularly the regional assessment and going from the regional to really Maryland, right? So we go from, we take look at the regional assessment and delve it further into just Maryland, obviously, right? So I think,
Okay.
I mean, I really like the, last NCA actually. So
Yeah, you can see here it's on the outline. This is
Yeah.
chapter 21 in the Northeast.
And there's even a couple mentions of Maryland in that.
Right.
Great. No, that's a wonderful suggestion. And then also something that I would like for us to leave today's meeting with a plan is very much what Don was mentioning earlier. This is only going to get done if there's a few good people, right, that assemble themselves around a steering committee that would get this done. So I would appreciate you giving some thought to this matter, either for yourselves or to nominate individuals that you think should be on this. And hopefully that will yield a large enough group that we can also pare down later. So that's an additional step that I wanted to chat with you about.
Yeah, just to let you know, Fernando, Victoria is still interested. Victoria Coles, who helped us on the first one, and she had a conflict today with that stack meeting that's going on.
Correct. Yeah, so nominations or suggestions that people that we can approach if they're not in this group, certainly if you're interested and you'll be more than welcome. So any input is very much well received.
Yeah, just particularly, I mean, I'm thinking, at my stage of my career, we need to get younger people involved in this, and there are a lot more people, a lot younger people who have a lot of experience working in this area. So if you have some colleagues who are, still in the early or mid-career, who are go-getters and doers,
Yes,
those are the people you need.
wonderful. So that 20 years from now, they can say, hey, we need to update this
There you
report,
go.
et cetera, right? So, Robin. Oh, I think you're
Maybe
mute,
muted.
Robin. Yeah,
Okay, there we go.
there you go.
So, are we finished with this conversation? Because I don't want to change topics if we're not.
I think we've reached a point where we've sort of agreeing of next steps, and so yeah, the answer is yes, but I'm always happy to revisit if something comes up later.
I was just getting to follow up on the nominating of other work group members.
Yes, please.
Because that's sort of nominating people for this work.
Correct. That is correct.
Anything further on that?
So we've received some. So thanks. We've received some, some nominations, and we are in the process of contacting them. Things have moved probably slower than they should, but it's still a high priority, and nominations and suggestions are always welcomed.
Because I'm thinking that there is a person that I would probably nominate
Mhm.
for this work, but she's not on the committee yet. So
Okay. You mean what you mean what committee or?
this STWG.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, first of all, for the steering group to produce this report, you don't have to be
Okay.
a member of the group. You don't have to
But
be,
she should be on this. She's one of the names I'd recommended be on the group anyway.
right. Perfect. 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 Yes. What else? What else? You seem concerned, worried. This is meant to be fun, folks. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. It's not going to be easy. We've already established it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be, but if we do it right, we're going to have an impact. And if we do it right, we should enjoy doing it. So that's the purpose.
Yeah, towards that impact and enjoyment, I just see this, in terms of what the other groups are doing within the MCC, and the agencies and so on. This is an opportunity for our scientific community in Maryland,
Yeah.
which has a lot of imagination, a lot of knowledge, a lot of energy to step up and do a part that can help in this overall effort. And so look for colleagues who have that kind of deep knowledge and passion about understanding this and communicating it. And that's what makes it work in a volunteer situation where you have people who think that this is important and I know something and I'm gonna contribute to this greater effort.
Yeah.
And that's the spirit I think we took back then, and I think we can take again.
I have to say, Don did a really good job getting a lot of work out of volunteers last time. But somebody, I mean, the final product was pretty slick. So somebody had to pay. It was not the scientists who put together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the production of the report itself part, we will get resources for that. I think the pre-production is the piece that it will probably be prohibitively expensive even if we had a way to do it, and it would also be prohibitively administratively very challenging because people are in different institutions. So how do we get money from A to B to C to D to a subcontract? I don't, no one wants to deal with that. So this has to be done on a volunteer basis at that level. And
Well,
we don't got no money.
maybe when all is said and done, we can get Serena McElwain to write to the bosses of the people who contributed and say thank you.
Oh yeah, we can probably.
Yeah, then there'll be authors of the report too. So
yeah.
Well, I think on the bright side, I don't know how you did it, Don, back in the 20 years ago, but I'm sure it was much harder and the less known back then. But I think we have a lot we can rely on now. So I think it's going to be fun.
I completely, wholeheartedly agree with that.
There's also foundations that probably will be very supportive of this. There's a couple on the commission as general.
Yeah. Just to let you know, Amir, I was writing a little bit of a side. I'm writing a declaration for the suit against EPA on the endangerment finding. And so part of the declaration, you had to put your background. And so I had to do the timeline. And I was on the first and second national climate assessment. And this Maryland assessment was done between the two. And so that's how primitive, we acknowledged that we had limited knowledge of that. Yeah. The other important thing about that is that this report this one that we did Maryland, had actually had a significant influence on the second national assessment in terms of the format and style and so on. So it was kind of a timely thing. You know, we were first out of the box, and now, you know, there's so much more information. We just need to bring it forth in a coherent, you know, cogent way, not just. If you read IP, how many people have read IPCC reports? Any a chapter of it, you know, it's just hard to do because of all of the, you know, not detailed. We don't have to do that. We can write something that can communicate to a much broader audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, should be an inclusive, reaching report.
Yeah, we need to decide who the audience is for it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a look at what we did.
Legislator or the public. It needs to be easily digestible.
It is meant to create the largest impact possible. So
We are not talking to other scientists or to each other.
No.
Yes.
And we might have to write some fact sheets and, you know, write a couple different versions.
And I think this is why the May 20 meeting may be interesting, because, you know, we are going to have a community partners to hear what they want, what would be useful to them, right? So I think hopefully we'll have some insight.
That's perfect.
The other thing you do, you just consider how things have changed in those 18 years. Now, a lot of these reports, like NCAs and so on, are done using the web, you know, and so you don't have to just rely on a paper document. You can have, you know, information displayed in other powerful ways that young people can access, and the whole world can access, not having to get our hands on a paper report.
Yes, so we can have Dawn doing a TikTok video.
Social media.
I want you to get that visual in your head, please.
All right, I need to go off for another meeting.
Yeah, so folks, so you're gonna get an email. Thank you, Don. Thank you very much. You're gonna get an email from us, from me, asking for a few things. One, review, please, the outline. Get us all your comments. I think we have, based on this conversation, an idea where this is going, but we still, if you want to put something down, great. Same thing with the production schedule document. I'd appreciate your thoughts. Again, we have some idea, but please get us specific input. Third, suggestions, nominations for what will be the steering committee. 4, suggestions, recommendations for who should we send once we have this outline production schedule ready. Who should we send it to for their input externally to our group? So agencies, colleagues, anyone that you think should receive it, we appreciate receiving that information. And then we're off and rolling. How about that? All right, so we got a plan. That's awesome. Thanks very much for your input. I think the last item on our agenda was the public comment, and I don't know if we have anyone for public comment today. It wouldn't appear so, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. Well, folks, me give you a little bit of time back. Thanks a lot for your time on a Friday and for a very, very interesting conversation.
If you want something amusing, what the state climatologist at the time was one of the principal authors of the first IPCC report, the one that won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay.
So we have one in our conference room, a copy written in Norwegian. And this is a Nobel Peace Prize is something I hear other people envy.
There you go.
It's not me, but but we have one.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's got a great piece of history. All right, folks.
Adios.
Have a great afternoon.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.